This is the first video in a series I'm doing on Little Mix and Fifth Harmony. I've been a fan of these two groups and I wanted to dive more into their marketing, imagery, sound, and just have an in-depth discussion about how great they are, what they meant to me, and what things were questionable about them and what things were interesting about them. In this video, I try to answer the question why Fifth Harmony and Little Mix weren't taken seriously as pop acts, particularly in the case of Little Mix. We have to talk about the stigma and the sexism attached to being a female pop act, stigmas of girl groups being signed to big labels, and how the kind of music they made led them to not being taken seriously as artists. The pop genre is an ever-evolving musical style. It's different from decade to decade, country to country, but generally speaking, I feel like the genre isn't respected as a whole unlike their other musical categories. Pop targets a young female audience, so its vivid colors and bright sounds are belittled by the masses. Part of this is because our society is mainly male-driven, and so the culture young women cultivate and participate in aren't really seen as important because it's deemed too feminine. Kind of the reason why feminine women aren't taken seriously. Anything that's closer to masculinity is more respected than anything close to femininity. In this patriarchal society, guys are taught to like girls but not feminine things, aka pop acts. I hope I'm describing this well. I'm doing my best, I promise. Another reason why pop isn't respected is because of its specific demo. Like I said before, it targets young, female, predominantly white people. So when you don't fit into those categories, you might not feel comfortable showing the pop artist love, or at least publicly, or supporting them publicly. And that's when they become guilty pleasures. For me, that was my source of embarrassment when it came to liking Little Mix in the early parts of their career. Heck, I was ashamed for liking One Direction. I'm black female in the 25 plus age bracket currently, so I'm not too comfortable, showing my love for girl groups at this age. And like I said, there was a time I was judged for saying I liked Little Mix. Even now, I don't know anyone who I know that even cares for them, and so I had to find online communities to share my love for the girls. Now, I had to specify that I was embarrassed to like them, like I said, in the early parts of their career, but during that part of their career, they were making music for like tweens and stuff like that, so it was just really hard for me to publicly like them. And here's a side note that's gearing to more of the sexism type of angle. I feel like female pop acts can't just be average. They have to excel at something in order to be taken seriously, like being a stellar vocalist or producer on top of being a vocalist or songwriter or play an instrument. And I don't see this kind of energy being geared towards male pop acts. Like, what is this? And with talking about Little Mix, they've got a hand in their songwriting and they're stellar vocalists. And you think that's enough to legitimize them as serious artists? Well, I'd say yes and no. Don't get me wrong, they definitely got their flowers when it came to being great performers, but something I think that still prevents people from thinking they're legit artists is the type of music they make. It's virtually the same when it comes to Fifth Harmony. Fifth Harmony only had a hand in their music when it came to their EP Better Together and their last album, Fifth Harmony. But Fifth Harmony and Little Mix both make commercial music meant to be hits rather than making songs with more artistic quality. Now, why is there an emphasis on making hits? Well, we have to understand that these groups are signed to huge labels, and that comes with a lot of control and strings. Little Mix was signed with Psycho and Columbia, then around 2018 they signed on to RCA, Fifth Harmony was under Psycho and Epic Records. They're all owned by Sony, by the way, which is interesting. So to me, they're basically under the same label. So being signed to big commercial labels means you have to put out commercially successful music that sells and charts well. There's generally no emphasis on artistic quality here. It's all about the money. Just look at this quote from Simon talking about Fifth Harmony while they were on X Factor. I think there was a gap in the market for a group like this, added Caldwell. They remind me of One Direction in terms of their personalities. They're fun to work with, hardworking, opinionated. That's what you want in a group. You also want the five-some to sell, said Cowell, just as he would like to see a spiking ratings. It's important. I have to be standing here in a year's time and hopefully be talking about the success of these artists. If I'm not, I've got a problem. From this quote, I'm inferring that Little Mix and Fifth Harmony were made to make money. Back onto the control aspect of things, I know Little Mix mentioned having a hand in their music throughout their career, but in the early stages of their career, I feel like people didn't believe this since it's not the norm when being signed to a major label. Everything is controlled by the company, usually, and Jade admitted to this in an interview with Radio Times while promoting Little Mix to church. At the beginning, we were all scared to piss anyone off and damaging our career. So we did what we were told, says Thorol. We didn't even realize we had a choice. It was pitched as not having one. So you signed what you were told to and you go along with it. As the years went on, we started to realize we didn't like that. Yep, that's probably the reason why the girls aren't taken seriously. Everyone knows how controlling labels can be. Sometimes people on these big labels are seen as the pretty faces to push out the product the label wants to sell. It's a bit soulless if you think about it. With no artistic input, people would tend to think that whatever musical content is being made from said artist isn't worth much. So why would anyone respect any music from these artists when essentially anyone can do it? Let me say that I definitely see how controlled Little Mix was in the early parts of their career. When they started to put their foot down and how much of a sway they started to have, no one knows when that started to happen, how much sway their influence they have for sure. Unfortunately, their sister group, Fifth Harmony, also went through something similar, besides the heartbreaking leaked audio of them being taken advantage of. When they were promoting their EP and talking about their first studio sessions, they constantly mentioned how much input they had in their upcoming projects. And let me just say something that yes, both Little Mix and Fifth Harmony have had writing credits in the catalog of music. I've looked it up on Wikipedia, it's in the credits, for God's sakes. But this is a marketing gimmick. You know, artists usually say, ooh, I wrote this, this, and that, or I was in the studio one day and we just thought of this melody. It makes people think, their fans essentially, that their musical content is a part of the artist themselves. And so when the fans buy something like their track or their album, it's like they're supporting the artist directly. It's like they're having a piece of the artist. And so people might think of it, even though you're saying this, that, and the third, we really don't know if you're actually making this stuff, the music. They might just take it as hearsay and be like, well, we still don't believe you because labels usually control everything. So where's the proof? Like, it's a gimmick after all. I can see it from that angle too. So just to clarify, I'm not saying that the songs that these groups made were garbage. If it means something to you, that's great. Even if I have negative things to say, even I have my favorite bits from both Fifth Harmony and Little Mix's catalogs. Just because something is mainstream doesn't mean it can't be meaningful. I'm just saying that the songs being made by these groups had the intent of being commercially viable. And because of that, some people would think these ladies aren't authentic or worth much artistically. Also, another reason these groups aren't taken seriously is how the label markets them. First off, when talking about Fifth Harmony and Little Mix, they definitely fit into the common girl group categories. Little Mix fits into the aspirational role model vein of girl groups like Spice Girls. Fifth Harmony went into the sex kitten vein of girl groups, think Pussycat Dolls, with more emphasis on the vocals. Little Mix, physically speaking, definitely have youthful appearances, even when they are in their late teens, in late 20s now, or almost pushing 30, they look like minors. And this did help them in their career longevity, but when talking about people respecting them as artists, and heck, even as women, it didn't help much. In this previously mentioned interview with Radio Times, Jade mentioned this. It took a while for people to not see us as little girls. We are physically small and look quite young, so it took some time for us to be able to say no. I remember in one meeting with one of the head guys, I tried saying, can we just come to some kind of compromise here? And he was like, how dare you? It's not about compromise. This is what we are doing. Wow, that sucks. And I had to say, their whole image, when it first came out, turned me off from them during their DNA and Get Weird eras. I felt like they were putting out music that would resonate more with their kid tween fans. Talking about the Get Weird era, the album in particular, it was a very polarizing album for me. This review from The Guardian kind of summed it up for me. Bucking the trend for pop groups navigating the inevitable aging process, Little Mix spend much of their third album skipping through the cute corridors of 90s tween pop rather than angling for austere adulthood. It is initially disappointing in their previous album, Salute, contorted the R&B girl group sound of the early 90s, with the kind of steely-faced spirit that took Destiny's Child into the next phase. With a name like Little Mix, will they ever be allowed to leave the sound of candy-colored kitsch? And I have to say, for the most part, I agree with the review. I have very negative, intense feeling towards the Get Weird album, but it's confusing because I have my favorite from the album. You know, my favorite tracks like Secret Love Song, The End, The Beginning, Clued Up. Overall, I felt like the group buckled down on trying to get a good grip on the tween dembo. And that's another thing as to why they're not being taken seriously. A lot of their biggest hits were targeted to kids. All the general public knows are the hits, and most of it's kiddie songs, and they're not gonna take you as serious artists. Fifth Harmony had the same issue, but in a different way. They also weren't taken seriously in a way because they were too into the risque adult territory. Too risque. They were doing thoughty club songs for the most part, twerking with skimpy outfits, coupled with the mainstream music. I mean, people knew who they were from the gate. No one's going to take them seriously as artists. Okay, so now we're winding down to my conclusion. I hope I made my points clear on why these groups weren't being taken or aren't being taken seriously. Both groups are hardworking, they're funny, they represent so many different things to their fans. I'm hoping for the Little Mix ladies' success in their solo endeavors. For Fifth Harmony, I hope they finally get to release solo LPs, albums, because for whatever reason, only Miss Horse has albums out. I will be doing more videos on these groups, so stay tuned. Please comment, like down below. Thank you so much. Goodbye.